I had the pleasure of chatting with you this morning about multiple things that are going on in our industry. And as a result of that conversation, I felt like you had so much to share with our industry at large, because there's loan officers and managers who are in the field that aren't always in the executive boardroom. And also someone who's representing our industry as the incoming chairman of the MBA. And I just thought there was so much of a wealth of information that you could share with people. So can you sort of share from your perspective what you think loan officers and managers and those in the field need to know is happening today in our industry?
Sure. And really, I'll be speaking from the point of SWBC mortgage. That's my day job. And I feel like that's where I have the most knowledge. I think it's really important for everyone in the industry to accept the fact that we're in a very fluid time. Things are going to be changing. There's lots of information out there. Some of it's good, some of it's not good, and some of it is changing on a regular basis. So for loan officers, they just focus on what they are so great at, which is working in their community virtually now, remembering to stay in touch with their referral sources, and understanding that in this changing dynamic with people losing jobs and hardships that are related to the virus, they're going to have to roll with the flow a little bit. Some customers may start with them and then may lose their job mid application, and then they'll have to wait to get a mortgage later on, either a refinance or a purchase. But it's really important to keep in contact, particularly keep in contact with your referral sources. This is really tough on them. They're out there. They are the professionals that we depend on year after year. We don't want to forget them in their, the time of need right now. And also be sure to be a good, cautious advisor to people that are calling you for refinance information. You want to be sure that you don't give out information that could be misunderstood or misconstrued when people are under a lot of stress and pressure.
What do you think the most important thing they need to communicate to that consumer right now who is used to calling a loan officer, getting a loan, closing, and just moving on? What expectations do you think they need to set with the consumer?
I think if it's a purchase transaction, barring any change in employment, that the process will go pretty much as usual. There may be some modifications to the appraisal process to adapt to the virus situation. There may be some modifications to the closing process, but every single one of those things is easily overcome, and there's not any reason to be particularly nervous or overly concerned. If it's a refinance transaction, I think the advice is that you need to make sure it's clear from start to finish. If there's a change in their income or their employment status, they need to tell you as soon as they know, because that will in fact make a big difference in whether that loan can complete or not. You certainly don't want to go through this process with a borrower and be grabbing all this information, and in the end you can't help them. So I think clear communication right up front on a refinance bar is so important. And also tell them it's going to take a little longer. The mortgage industry is blessed during this terrible time to have a lot of business and have great employment opportunities. But it's going to be a little slower than normal because of this huge volume of business that sort of worked through this system. So just be patient. The loan will be taken care of. You can work through it. If somebody contacts you and they currently are in a crisis, they currently have lost their job, recommend they call their servicer right now. That's the best advice you could give them. Don't try to get in the middle of that problem with them. Save them some time and direct them right back to who they make their mortgage payments to do, and they will get some help.
So, Susan, as the owner of SWBC, and what are the, let's say, top three, if you can narrow it down to only three, challenges that you are trying to address today as a business owner and also the MBA, if you don't mind?
So I'm a leader, not the owner. We're part of a holding company.
Got it.
To be clear. I think the biggest challenge that we have is that we have managed our company for 31 years very carefully. And we first and foremost want to make sure that we're taking care of our internal customers, our beloved coworkers, and keeping the company strong and healthy. And then the same thing in turn, that we're able to provide the best possible, situation and loan for a borrower. So what we're concerned about is we need to make sure that we're keeping up with the changes. The changes are happening almost daily right now, and that's likely to continue for a while. So we need to understand the changes. We need to adapt to those changes quickly, and then we need to do a super good job of communicating those changes, first internally and then externally. I think that's a key component that's on my mind. The other thing that's on my mind is working with the group at whole. I don't remember a time in my career, which is a pretty long one, that people have been more willing to get on the phone and help you and talk through problems and give advice about how to deal with some of these changes in the market. It is remarkable to watch the industry getting together, working together to figure out how are we going to do these things? How are we going to sell these loans? What are we going to do about forbearance? How are we going to work with the agencies? What are their expectations? And what do we do as an industry to respond to those expectations and safeguard our business and provide the best for the customer? Those are the really big challenges, and there's a lot of nuances to it. But the people that are involved in having those conversations have been remarkable and great. I feel like the government is doing a great job from the Treasury Department and Ginnie Mae and FHA and the GSEs trying to address these challenges. It's an overwhelming task, particularly for the government. But for our agencies, I think the communication, we're continuing to have a lot of dialogue, and it's really a good process. And we have a ways to go, but we will get figured out. We will work together and figure this out and get through this crisis and get back to a time where it's business as usual.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen an industry, our industry, come together like they're coming together, as you just mentioned. So I want to ask you a question. It might be a little bit early. And the question is, have you made any changes right now that you think when this is over, you will maintain?
I think we've been pretty flexible about where our people worked for a long time. And we've been talking about for a long time that the world is changing and how people do business is different than when it was 5 or 10 years ago. And do we need to rent a lot of office space? Maybe not. So I think we will all learn some great things through this process. As hard as it is, our people have never been more efficient. The productivity is off the charts, and they have children at home. It is remarkable. So I think we probably will have some changes we keep in place. There also may be some changes to the process about how we're communicating to the borrower right up into the very end that we keep in place. Because, at the end of the day here, this is a big transaction for a customer. A purchase is a big transaction, and a refinance is a big transaction as well. The communication with the borrowers is really critical, and never more so than now.
Could not agree more. And right now, I think when you think about the traditional loan officer, the really good ones, which I'm going to say a good percentage of, they're used to sharing information with the consumer, but they've got to really be over communicating about what the changes are that are happening and getting them prepped. Because unfortunately, I was talking to someone that said, my pipeline's pretty full, but where will it be 3 to 6 weeks from now if people are losing their jobs?
Right. And from a loan officer's perspective, it's just coming at them right and left. Changes, and they're trying to adapt to them. And then they're sort of taking on the stress of their borrowers like they always do. And so it is difficult. And I think you look at your pipeline, and you're just going to have to know that the worst case scenario is some of those loans are going to fall out. It's terrible for the borrower because something has changed in their income stream, but just keep working away and keep in touch with your referral sources. They're going to come back. People are going to come back buying homes. So I think it's really important. Don't get too distracted with the big pipeline and forget for sort of the meat and bread, if you will, of our industry, which is our referral sources.
An idea for all of those that are listening in right now, and this is interesting, Susan, the stranger loan officer, the one that doesn't have the relationship with the referral sources, is going to have a tougher time, right? Because now they're just considered junk mail, if you will, because the emails are coming in and they don't have time. However, if you already have a relationship and you don't connect, then you may get replaced. And this is a perfect time to do this visual where you can actually see each other. And so I really encourage anybody who is listening in, if you have referral sources right now, are you scheduling meetings where you're doing the Zoom and doing some form of connection with them visually? Well, listen, I have been blessed by this morning and today and just a little bit of time. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of the entire industry. You and I both serve it and love it. And we want to bring as much value to everyone. And so appreciate how hard you guys are working at the MBA to bring solutions and just to keep the dialogue open. And the level of changes in communication is so necessary. And you guys are really stepping it up. And I so appreciate that. And I know everybody does. I've been hearing, I've been on the calls, listening in on what's happening to our industry and everything from the forbearance to the govies, to servicing, to appraisals, to the VVOEs. It's just unbelievable, the changes. So all loan officers, be patient, because I can promise you this, the owners of the mortgage companies today, the leaders of mortgage companies are working around the clock to get it stabilized, so you know exactly how to communicate, what to communicate. and how to move forward. But let me just say thank you so much for your time today.
Casey, thank you. You know, you're an institution in our industry. We need you. We need somebody that's sitting there and working to keep our teams educated and motivated. So I am delighted to talk with you, and I'm delighted to see you working so hard to continue to bring so much to our industry, because we need it, and we're going to need it a lot more in the future.